Happy Friday, y'all. We made it through
Right.
another week. All right. Okay. And all right. So happy Friday. This is Jamie. I'm Jamie from SoulScript Coaching. I'm here at the writing desk where I go live every week to talk to you about all things writing, memoir, and mindsets because I believe we heal with words, we heal ourselves, we heal others, and we just keep making the world better through the pathway of stories. So each week we talk about the writing desk about a different topic related to writing, of course. So be sure to like and follow my Facebook page at SoulScript Coaching and join my Facebook group, SoulScript Writing Circle. But I am super excited today because I have the very distinct honor and pleasure to be joined by my friend TJ Murphy. I think I'm in the right direction here. Uh,
One of these times.
yes, TJ Murphy from Height Digital. He is coming to us. I'm in upstate New York, but he is coming to us all the way from Bend, Oregon. I said it right, yes?
Said it beautifully. Oregon, Oregon, you
Yes,
know.
yeah. And he is the owner of Height Digital. He and his team, they focus on serving businesses and empowering talented people. They provide web design, they do branding, digital marketing services to businesses in every industry. They empower their growth through ROI driven campaigns and strategies, which is super cool. And I have to tell you, I first met TJ because a friend of mine, Sonia Rice, another fabulous writer whose memoir is coming out soon, I hope. Um, and he had just created a beautiful landing page website for her. And we'll have to maybe show you that later on today. But they do incredible work over there. And so I was like, okay, he knows all things marketing. We got to talk to him. So, welcome, TJ. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Jamie. It's a pleasure to be here. Definitely really looking forward to the conversation, seeing where it takes us, and just providing as much value and answering any big questions that people have out there about websites, branding, how to stand out as an author. There's so much there that we can unpack. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's what one of the biggest things that I often get with my clients as writers is them being worried about marketing and just how do you even get your name out there? How do you sell a book? How do you do all these things? And that's what you do for businesses, right? In general.
Yeah, I mean, we work with, as you said, a lot of industries. Authors are not like a primary consumer of ours, but you mentioned Sonia. We have worked with several in the past, mostly on just branding and helping them really figure out, okay, how do I build a community around what I'm doing? Not just with my book, but like in the case of Sonia, public speaking and some of the things that she really wanted to do to build a platform and ultimately bring good to the world. So when it comes to that stuff, there's a lot that we can support with, and we're just marketing people, so we understand the world of consumer behavior, what gets people to take action, and a lot of that, of course, applies to how to get your book out there, but more importantly, how to get your brand out there. People buy your books, but ultimately, what's going to get them to really stick around with you is the brand you build around yourself and what you're doing, what you stand for, and how you're communicating and keeping that community alive.
I love that. I love that. So, how would you define to a newbie, getting into this field? Because writing is a business in itself. How would you define branding and creating a brand to the person just getting started?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I think it can be such an ambiguous thing. What is a brand? What is branding when it comes to me, my personal brand, or in the case of a business,
All
that
about the
business?
colors and the logo, right?
Yeah, so for me, my brand is everything that I do in the community, in my business, personally. Like you'll see, this is my like personal brand logo. I've got my height on the back. I've got my height t-shirt. So kind of practicing what we preach in that respect. But it's so much more than just your swag and your logo and all of that. When you think about your brand, it really boils down to what is your why? Like, what is it that you're standing for? What's that mission that you are bringing to the world, whether it is through the written word, these books that you're putting out there, but maybe you have something beyond that. Maybe you do have a stance to, help certain circles. I know for Sonia, we'll just use her as an example because we were talking about her website, and I can pull it up here in a little bit. But for her, it's all about helping to guide widows, people that are impacted by suicide, highly sensitive people. Like that's her, those are her people. And so everything that she does with her brand is geared around communicating and helping them solve big problems in their lives. And so the words that she puts out there when she gets up on stage, that's what she's speaking about. When she's posting a blog or a newsletter or social media, all of these things at the end of the day are what build your brand. It's how you communicate what you do and what you stand for with the world.
I love that. I love that. So yeah, it's really your message, and you talk about like finding out who you're talking to too as well, right?
Totally. I mean, you gotta, when you know what you want to say and what you stand for, well, now you do dig deeper and figure out, okay, well, who are those people? What are those, what we call them, ICAs, ideal customer avatars, or, in this case, maybe ideal reading avatars, if you will. I've never used that term, but who are the people that are going to fall in love with the stories that you're telling, with these books that you're writing? And there's probably multiple categories within that. I'm I'll use a series that I'm reading. I love fantasy. My wife and all her friends were reading Sarah J. Maas, the
Of course.
ACOTAR Throne of Glass series, and she was like, "I think you'd love it." And sure enough, I do. But I am very different than my wife. So those ideal customer avatars are going to be different subsets, different groups of people that they align on a common interest, but where they hang out, the media that they consume online, the things that really interest them the most about your work might differ. And so getting to understand those people, both through kind of your own hypotheses in the beginning, if you haven't built that community, you don't have that feedback loop yet, you might have an idea of who those people are. But as you start to build that community and get stuff out there and people respond back to you and tell you why they love your stuff, that's when you can start to really take note. And it's great to document this stuff. When people tell you why they like your stuff or why they're drawn to you, start to capture that because you can build these audiences. And as you get more clarity around who your people are, it's going to become a lot easier to know how to communicate with them. What are the best channels? What is the right messaging? All of these things are going to make it a lot easier to then find more of those people out there in the wild.
Mhm. That's really, really smart. That's and interesting too, because you're right. I mean, I don't think Sarah Moss probably envisioned you in her target group, but there's still so many outliers that are still going to stumble across your brand. So would you say you don't necessarily have to, I mean, for me, I always heard you try to sell to everybody, you're selling to nobody. Or if you write for everybody, you're writing for nobody. Is it still that same kind of thing, or how do you? A lot of people worry that if they niche down, if they focus on one group, then they're going to be missing out on all these other people.
Yeah, I mean, I prescribe to this idea of like 1,000 true fans. If you can really hone in on, and maybe it's yourself, like think about if you feel that your book or your message is really going to resonate with people that are similar to you, which in a lot of cases that is true. Well, we got a huge world out there. There are a lot of people that are just like you, and who knows yourself better than yourself. So that is always a great place to start, assuming you are writing for an audience that you feel is very similar or overlaps closely with yourself. Kind of use that as a guiding light for a primary customer avatar. At the end of the day, I might be a very fringe consumer of Sarah Moss. Like that is not her overarching, majority of her audience at all. So if she was trying to like capture me in that message, it probably wouldn't have worked out the way it has for her. But there are, even within her major, like super fans, some differences between them. And she probably didn't understand that on book one, but she probably did have an idea of the types of young, majority being female readers that were going to fall in love with these stories. So being able to start with that kind of overarching, little bit nebulous, but big generalization of who those people are, well, now she can at least say, all right, well, I'm going to write it in a certain way. I know those types of people are going to use certain social media channels. They're going to consume media in a certain way. So from a marketing standpoint, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole too much because I do not know what her marketing strategy was or any of that. I did not do that kind of prep work. But if I were in those shoes, that's how I would be thinking about it. If I want to do a book launch tour and, my audience was entrepreneurial 30-year-old men, I'd probably be looking at certain podcasts that I'd want to be on over others, or, certain social media channels where I'd want to do some collaborations that have a big audience in that circle. So being able to think about in the beginning, even if it's a little more general, who those people are going to be that are most likely to consume is going to help you to not just be speaking to everybody, but focusing on those people that are the most likely candidates to like your stuff.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And yeah, all you young men out there, Sarah Moss is really great. You like her. My nephew
Yeah.
likes her too, so you're not alone. Um, awesome. So talking about that, you mentioned like the social media channels and all of that, and we were talking about the websites. Can you talk to us a little bit? Is it important? Sometimes people are like, "Oh, you don't really need a website," but I feel like it offers a little like legitimacy, almost grounding, a ground base or a foundation for your business, and your author brand. What would you say? Do you believe it is important to have a website or a landing page, or what is your view on that, and what's important to include in something to make it worthwhile?
Yeah. I mean, for an author, I think the most important thing is to write your book, right? And make that great and get that out there into the world.
Of course.
Once
That's
you've
step
done
one.
so, once you've done so, I mean, hopefully people are finding it. You're doing good things to promote the book. It gets picked up. And what are people going to do? If they love it, they're going to want to know what you're doing, what's coming next, when's the next book coming out, and they're probably going to Google your name. So I'll share my screen. We can even look at an example of this. Like, I'll jump over to another fantasy author, Rebecca Yarros, and she has her own personal brand website here that you can see. So when she was first getting started, I'm hoping she had big aspirations to grow and become as huge as she has. But when she wrote that first book, people probably started to look for her on Google and other search engines, but 90% of the world uses Google. And so to be able to own your name, especially like own that identity, own that brand with a digital piece of real estate, AKA your website, is super important. You want to control what people are going to find when they're looking for you. And so having a website is the best and easiest way to do that. And once people find you there, obviously you want to make sure that they're finding the information that they're looking for, which we can get more into that. But talking about what's coming up, talking about, if it is just more than your books, the series that you're putting out, if you are a public speaker, you stand for causes, like get people aware of what it is that you're about, because that's how you're going to create those raving true fans who become the brand advocates that get on your newsletter, that follow your podcast, that follow everything that you do. And having a website gives them a portal to being able to find all of those things and engage with you and support you in anything that you want to pursue. So, yes, to answer your question more succinctly, super important to have a website. Is it the thing that you need to do on day one? No, not necessarily, but I would take the very first step of at least like getting your name, domain. If you're an aspiring author, or even if you're not an author, for anybody out there, no matter what you do, it's good to have a domain that you can turn into that personal brand website. So when people are searching for you online, when you're ready, you can build that website out and get it to show up on Google. And then when you become bigger, stuff like this, that all gets pulled from websites, media that's out there, social media, and being able to control what Google and other search engines, the data that they have to like talk about you is super important. Like controlling the narrative. I've said that a couple of times here, but the website's going to be your gateway to doing so.
That is a really great point too, though, controlling your narrative, and being able to really drive the conversation to where you want it to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Awesome.
mean, I can dig deeper into some of the like things that I think about with a website. I mean, for an author, obviously you want to talk about your books. That's super important. But having a goal for what you want people to do when they land on your website is also super important. Maybe you want to, in the beginning, like build up that community. If they're out there, you need a way to capture it. So maybe that's through a newsletter and you're putting out weekly or monthly information about what you're doing in the world. The website's where people are going to be able to find that, subscribe to it, and then stay in the loop. Maybe you have a podcast. Maybe you want to drive people to your social media channels, get them on your Instagram. Whatever that goal is, that should really be a part of the strategy beyond just selling books. Okay. Now that you've hopefully sold them one, they're going to continue to read and prescribe to you, but they're going to need a way to be informed when there's new stuff that's out there. And a newsletter is a very easy, inexpensive way of doing something like that.
Yeah, and that's pretty easy just to put in to use a like a CRM kind of software to gather email addresses and then just go from there. And you can even do it on, like a MailerLite or a MailChimp or a Height Digital professional form.
Totally, totally. A lot of this stuff in the beginning you can do for very little investment and DIY a lot of it. For many authors, it's you've got more time than funds to invest in this kind of stuff. So building out a newsletter, that's something anybody can do with a little bit of YouTubing and
Yes.
a little bit of time. Building a website, it's easier now than it used to be, but maybe something that you want to look for a professional. I know you have more questions, so I don't want to steal the
No, no,
show.
this
We
is
can get more into that, but
yeah, this is all great. So what would you say would make or break a good author website? What are things that you think are key essentials? And I like how you said having that goal for what you want them to do, whether it's whatever action step that is, and then also really presenting your mission, right? Um, and what you kind of stand for. So is it hokey to just have, a big picture of you and this is who I am, or do you have any like thoughts on what would make a website look amateur versus up and coming professional? I guess is my
yeah,
question.
no, it's a good point. I mean, at the end of the day, first impressions matter. Your reputation matters. So putting out a website that you want people to see, that you feel is going to elevate the experience they have with you, their impression of you is super important. And that's kind of where I was going with, maybe you want to hire a professional, even if you're just building a single landing page. Let's look at Sonia's. You mentioned it earlier. So this is one that we built for her. And some of the things that you mentioned, needing to have a goal. I mean, primary goal for her as a new author is to really educate people on what she stands for. So first things that she calls out, she's an author. Her biggest goal was also getting on more stages, doing more speaking and advocacy work. So those are the things that we make loud and clear when people land on here. And then, just a one sentence kind of tagline about what she's all about, passionately bringing awareness, support, and guidance to widows, suicide survivors, and highly sensitive people of the world. So if you identify with any of that, well, right away, you're in the right place, right? The goal isn't to, as you said, cater to everyone, it's to cater to the right people. And so by making that loud and clear from the beginning, if people are feeling like, okay, I'm intrigued, this is something that I'm interested in, well, now they're going to continue to go down the website. Maybe they jump in, subscribe to her newsletter. Maybe they want to learn more about her and her book launch. So definitely telling people about yourself and what you stand for, especially as a newer author where that's not just widely known out there in the public. We'll look at Brene Brown. I have her pulled up here in a moment. It's going to have a very different look and feel just because of how big she is.
Yeah.
But having a clean, well-represented website, in her case, her personal brand was something that she wanted to build up. So of course, we want to make sure that she is front and center. People are getting to know her, they're getting to like her, they're getting to trust her. And having images of her and all the amazing work she does with her cakes, with her books, with her advocacy work,
Yeah.
all super important. And she was running a petition at the time of launching this, and that was super important. So we're giving people very easy ways to get guided to what they're interested in and then take action. If you don't ask people to do something, they're not going to do it. You have to have those calls to action throughout the site and do it in a way where you're giving them just enough to entice that interest and get them to take the next step.
And what I love about her website as someone just getting into the playing field is it's clean, it's simple. There's beautiful, not like really crazy photos of her. She looks beautiful. Um,
Yeah.
and there's a fair amount of writing, but it's not overwhelming. Like sometimes I'll go to a website and it's just
It's not
like,
just a block of text
yeah, yeah,
scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. It needs to be digestible, right? We need to give people
yes,
just enough to understand and then take them deeper with a button, with a click. Because not everything is going to resonate with everyone. If we want
hmm
to have multiple things that we're talking about, we want them to find the thing that's most interesting to them in that moment and give them the path of least resistance to get there.
yeah.
And in her
If I were
case,
to,
those were the,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say in her case, those were the main things: getting the petition signed, getting on her newsletter, for local people, booking a porch time session with her, which is super cool. Work just like one-on-one kind of
Yes.
support coaching. She's a very just giving person. So that
Yes,
was
she's
important for her to
amazing.
include.
Um, yeah, yeah, and that so you can clearly see that she has that brand of let's help each other get through
Yep.
life in all the best ways. So you could see that brand that you were talking about, the mission coming out, and not just it's not just her book. Where I see a lot of people want to get their domain under their book title or their book name, but it's not the book that they're selling. It's actually them as the author, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you first launch a book, I mean, domains are cheap. Let's be real. You can pay anywhere from $8 to $15 a year, and especially for your book title, unless it's something that is taken or very popular. If I was looking for like my book was named Cake, I'll just use Sonia because she's all about cake. Cake.com probably not going to be available, right? So to try to get that would be very expensive. But for most things, your name, the title of your book, those are good domains to grab. And even before you're famous and even before you launch your book, like even if you don't do anything right away with them, grab those because it's something that you're going to want to be able to use to, in the case of your book, like whether you build a website for it or that domain just routes people to Amazon to buy the book, like being able to control that valuable piece of real estate online is super important.
That's really smart, really good to think about. Do you recommend a certain platform or hosting?
Yeah, when it comes to purchasing domains, it really doesn't matter. They're all doing the same thing at the end of the day. What it really boils down to is customer service. That's from my experience the most important thing that differentiates
Mhm.
GoDaddy, SiteGround, WP Engine. There's hundreds of these sites out there where you can buy a domain and host your website. I'm not I don't have one above all that I love, but we use SiteGround for a lot of our sites. GoDaddy is also a good one from a customer service standpoint.
Mhm.
Bigger ones tend to just have more user friendly interfaces on the back end. It can look a little techy and complex for someone if you're not used to it. So they make it a little bit easier than some of the smaller outfits out there. So those are two I would start with, especially if you're just looking to buy a domain. GoDaddy is a great first stop. You're gonna be able to find any domain that's out there
Yeah,
and make that purchase. It's more than easy.
sure. Sorry, that's my dogs.
Yeah, that's all good. We like dogs here.
Yes.
Real quick, let's look at Brene because I teased it. I don't want to forget about it. But very different. Obviously, she has so much going on, but as an author, she's a huge author,
hmm
and her website is really geared towards her personal brand. What do we see? We see book, podcasts, different hubs that she leads about her, of course. And so over time, this has probably evolved to include all of these different things that she's added into her toolkit, into what she's doing out there in the world, into her brand. And at the end of the day, a lot of it's going to be geared towards her content. So featured content, things that align with her mission, overcoming stress and overwhelm, highlighting other people, influential people that she probably collaborates with on a regular basis, her podcast featuring episodes that she has put out recently, or probably other podcasts that she's been on recently.
Mhm.
Basically, just giving people all the different ways to engage and interact with her work. And so, in the beginning, it can be a very simple, as we look at case of Sonia, this is just a one-page website. All the information is just there as you scroll down the page. The links just take you to those individual spots on the page. But over time, as she grows her brand, you know, starts doing more things, it can evolve with you. So don't get overwhelmed by the idea of a website being this huge undertaking in the beginning, because it doesn't need to be. It can be something that is relatively inexpensive to hire someone to build, and it doesn't need to be more than a single page with a newsletter sign up form in the beginning.
Yes. I love that. I love that. It's all about evolving and taking your time to get there and not, you don't have to be Brene Brown today, or even tomorrow. Let yourself build there. But
It's huge.
starting somewhere is always a great step to go to. So if I can ask then too, a lot of the big question is to obviously our writers, they've written their book and they're trying to get it out there, but beyond that, what is your what do you use or recommend as a marketing plan or strategy to get people to see the book, to see the website, to sign up? How do you even get them from seeing your name somewhere or not seeing your name at all to finding you in this world of so many writers and creators and influencers and all of that? How do you show up? I know that's a big
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, there's so many ways to go about it, right? You know, from the traditional publishing method to crowdsourcing to more of the self-publishing route with a grassroots marketing engine, which is really dependent on you. And I am not an author, but if I were to be, how I would go about it would start with what we've already discussed. Who are my people? What is my message? First, what is my message? At the end of the day, what is the platform that I'm going to build around my brand, my books? And then through that, should have a very, at least initial idea, clear initial idea of who are the people that I at least think are going to resonate the most with this. Maybe it's people similar to me. Maybe I'm writing something that isn't really my people, but I know, or at least I think I know who it's going to resonate with. Start there. Start to build out these customer avatars. And even if you just start with one core one, build out a list. And you can Google, you know, processes for building an ideal customer avatar. You could ask ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, hey, what are some questions I should be asking myself about my ideal customers? Like, help me develop this ideal customer avatar. And you're going to find many ways, many frameworks, many templates that you can then go and fill in. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's the simple stuff. Demographics. Who are they? How old are they? Where do they live? What are their interests? What are their behaviors? You know, where are they going online in terms of social media? What magazines would they be reading? What podcasts would they be listening to? Like, go as deep as you can to understand who that person is and how they consume both online, but also in the physical world. Because that piece, especially, is what is going to help you figure out how to market to them. You know, if you know what podcasts, what media, what social media channels, what newsletters they subscribe to, that's going to leave you some clues. Whether you have budget or not, there's things that you can be doing to get on podcasts. So if I were to write a book, I would go through that whole thing. I would identify what category of podcasts, for starters, would those people be most interested in? I would find all of the potential podcasts where I could go and be a guest on. I would either do the outreach myself or work with a team to do the outreach to get me booked on as many of those as possible.
Yeah.
Same thing on, more traditional media, whether it's magazines or blogs or, whatever. How can I get featured? How can I pitch a story that's going to be of value to their audience? It's going to get eyeballs on their stuff because it's interesting, it's important, it answers a big question that they have. And so without having to spend money, I'm just using my own thought leadership, the own content that I create, my own speaking to get myself out there, leveraging other people's audiences that are already built out. That's the best way because you're going to be able to cross pollinate and start to attract those people into your own sphere.
That's really smart. Leveraging other people's audiences, just they've already got it, they've already done the work, they've already set it up. So if you can get into those places, you're right. Yeah, that's just a huge, great strategy to follow.
Yeah. And then have a goal, where are you going to, if you're on a podcast, what's your call to action? Where are you going to drive those people?
Do
Probably a website is the easiest way, or your social media channels. But I always emphasize the importance of, if you're building an audience, it's far greater to own those contacts, aka an email list in its most simple form. Like that's an asset that you can take with you to any other channel. You can email to them. You can use that to get people on social media. You can advertise using that list on many different platforms by uploading and just targeting those emails versus, yeah, social media is great. It's a tool. We have to use it. That's where, again, people are. So go to where the people are and bring them over. But you don't own that at the end of the day. Things can happen. Your accounts can get shut down. So build that, but also try to build something that can carry with you, and an email list, a podcast. Those are things that two biggest ones that you can control and build yourself to be able to carry those people and drive them wherever you want them to go engage with you.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, in when you're thinking social media, um, it typically we are all thinking, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and it really depends on where your readers are, like what age group, all of that, right?
Yeah. Again, when if your audience is older demographic, maybe Facebook's going to be more viable, Instagram, LinkedIn, if they're still in the working years, professionally focused people versus, yeah, younger demographic, TikTok, Instagram, definitely not Facebook. So don't even invest time or energy on Facebook if you're going after, 20 or younger.
Yeah, yeah, they don't even that's a dinosaur age for us.
Yeah, yeah. So it definitely, again, just all comes back to those first steps. Understand who you're talking to, because that's going to dictate how you talk to them.
And once you've gotten through, those first steps, you've set up the website, you're starting to reach out on podcasts, you've created kind of a little bit of a social presence. Um, do you typically, for like your businesses and all of that, do you use ads on those social media sites or Google? And is that a worthwhile strategy, or is that something where
Yeah.
it ends up just being like a big money dump? Because I've heard both ways.
For an author, I mean, my belief is no, you shouldn't be spending money on ads in the beginning. There's lots of free ways to leverage, or at least free and inexpensive, more inexpensive ways to leverage other people's existing audiences that you can already identify as having a huge pool of your people in them versus, yeah, running a Facebook ad or an Instagram or LinkedIn to sell a book that no one's heard of. That's going to be I mean, not that you won't get some sales, but you're probably not going to see a great return on investment from that. Now, when you are bigger, more established, of course, there's a very good argument to target the people in your community that you've already cultivated on all of these platforms it's a lot easier to say, hey, I'm doing this thing, whether it's a new book or an event or a product that you're selling, to be able to remarket to those existing audiences that you've built out. That's a great time to start to think about paid ads.
Yeah. 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 Awesome. Um, oh, sorry, I lost you there for a second. Yeah, yeah, that's excuse me. Yeah, I definitely heard a lot of different things, but I agree. It's very hard to get a return on investment unless you know those really good specific strategies. But I've had couple of people asking me questions about that, and so I was curious, and that was helpful to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one opinion. Take it for what it's worth. But if I were to write a book, I wouldn't be focused on building out a big ad strategy, ad campaign in the beginning. I would do what I said I was going to do and look for other audiences and cultivate those first.
Yes, definitely. And also, people don't forget to create your Amazon profile and your Goodreads profile. Those are also two other places you can totally grab in more people just so that they know who you are. And I think you can link your website to those as well, and vice versa. So, those are two good places just to start.
Definitely. Yep.
Let's see. I'm trying to see. There are other questions that came up. Um, do, 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 do. What else, what is a question that we should ask about marketing or building an author brand or any of those things that we don't know to ask?
Mm, I would, well, we kind of touched on. I mean, I would say the brand is the thing that usually people don't ask. Like, how can I create a unique brand for myself as an author that sets me apart from so many others? I mean, no matter what genre you're in, what category you're in, it's going to be a crowded space unless you're just doing something totally different and outside the box. So when it comes to that, I mean, it just goes beyond the books themselves that you're writing. It delves into who you are, what you stand for as an author. And it's essential to ask yourself those questions, even if you've already written a book. I would say it's important to think about, well, what comes after the book? Am I just going to write one? Am I going to write many? What is that brand that I'm going to build? Because that's going to dictate the marketing tactics. That's going to help you to really become memorable and appealing in what is a crowded, and I mean, our attention spans are shorter than ever before. We're getting hit on all sides by something new and engaging. We're always getting pulled in. So being able to stand on a strong pillar of who you are and what your brand is all about is going to lead to and have a huge impact on book sales and reader loyalty. So consider, like, what are those unique perspectives or experiences from your past you bring into your writing, because those are the things that people can relate to, especially for some of these cult authors. Their books are very much drawn from the experiences that they have or they've witnessed in their lives. And those are the things that people relate to. So find those common themes, because that's something that you can really build messaging around and not just keep your existing readers and audience engaged, but that's what's going to bring in new people as well. And then how can you be consistent? How can you consistently communicate your brand across all the different platforms and ways you can interact with people? I mean, you can't be everywhere, especially in the beginning. It's very hard. You only have so many hours in a day. And especially if you are someone that loathes getting on and posting on social media and engaging with people on social media and writing a newsletter, you're going to need to figure out what's something you can commit to and be consistent with, whether that's doing it every day, every week, once a month, whatever it might be. Start with something that you can commit to doing for a year or a 6 month period. Build that habit and then start to add in more. Because if you're saying, hey, I'm gonna do a daily newsletter or a weekly newsletter, I'm gonna post on social media every day, I'm gonna get on a podcast every week, I'm gonna do all these things, well, what's gonna happen? maybe you can be successful at it for a week, maybe two, then you're gonna get burned out, you're gonna get lazy, you're not gonna do it, and then you're not gonna do anything. Once the thing starts to unravel, usually all the things stop. And it's consistency over time that is what's going to help you to be successful. So that's another question I'd ask myself. How can I build something that will allow me to be consistent in engaging with the people that I've identified that I want to communicate with the most?
Hey, y'all, those are two very big pieces of gold right there. Just everything you said about the author brand, knowing your message is what's going to make you stand out. Because it is, there's over 7,000 books, I think is the number, written every single, published, not just written, published every single day. It's a big world of literature and commerce out there. So to stand out, you really just got to own your own self and your authenticity, and stick with it. Yeah, that consistency, because I've been there. It's hard. It's hard when you're trying to do it all. It ends up being you get into that paralysis where you're like, I have so much to do, I can't do anything. So those
Yeah.
are those two very very gold nuggets there.
Yeah. And I would just say, like, if you're listening to this, you're clearly an author, and just taking that step puts you into, even though there are so many books being published, like there's very few when you think about the grand scheme of things, the population of the world, you are in a 1% category. And that takes tremendous courage and
Yes.
bravery to put pen to paper, to, you know, obviously we're not many people are putting pen to paper, you know what I mean? To be able to do
Yes.
that and commit to writing a book and putting it out there in the world, that takes just tremendous courage and bravery. So kudos to you for taking that step. And give yourself that gift of doing the deep work to be able to get that message out. Even if it doesn't become a bestseller, if it can help one person, if it can resonate with one person, it can resonate with a lot more. And it's your duty at that point to help put it into the right hands. And hopefully some of this stuff will help you get there.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That is perfect and beautiful and exactly true. And maybe you should be thinking about writing that book, TJ.
We'll see. It's not out of the question. I've
There you
thought
go.
of it. Not in this season, but certainly I've got many seasons ahead of me, so
Yes,
I won't
yes.
go
You can write the next version of the male version of Akotar.
There we go. There we go. Get into fantasy. That could be cool. Could be cool.
Yes, very cool. All right, wonderful. Well, anything else if somebody wants to talk to you about designing their author website, how would they get in touch with you, or what would they do to reach out to you?
I make it really easy. I have a personal brand website that's kind of the gateway to all of my stuff, social media, just emailing me, et cetera, et cetera. So that is tjmurphy.me. Easy to find. I'm sure you could link that out somewhere. And if you are someone that even just wants to dive a little deeper into some of the topics we chatted about today, I'd be more than happy to spend some time with you and help you get some more clarity on what you need to be thinking about and what you need to be doing. I love helping people in that way. So don't be shy.
I can attest to that. I've taken up a couple hours of his time, and he's always so helpful and so patient. Always asks great questions, helps you out, figure things out. So definitely reach out and talk to TJ, everybody. And thank you so much for spending this time with us today. I'm really really grateful, and I know we've got a couple people watching us live here. They're all chiming in. Oh, we do have one. Is there anything authors can do with the writing itself that lends itself to easier marketing opportunities?
Mm,
That's a
that
question
might
for
be out of my pay grade, but I mean, let's see. Anything we can do with the writing itself. I mean, again, I think it boils down to what you are writing about, more than likely is being drawn from the experiences that you've had, the experiences that other people are having. So being able to identify that and pulling out some of those core themes, some of those core experiences that other people are going to resonate and relate with, that becomes the fuel, the golden nuggets for your content. What do you say outside of the book? If there's certain things that are just drawing people in and like keeping them turning those pages, how can you turn that into social media content? How can you turn that into giving people a deeper dive into, whatever topic or world you're bringing them into outside of the books until the next one comes out? That's just a way of keeping people more engaged. So
Yes.
that's the tip I'd give there.
Exactly. That's a great answer for sure. Because you can use those pieces of your book. You own that and just build on the ideas, and that's grabbing their attention. It's getting them to know, like, and trust you, and giving you've already written it, so you've already got the content. You just build up on it a little bit more and say, for more, go buy my book. Um, and you're golden. So yeah, that's a great answer, TJ. Thank you. Awesome. All right. Well, so I just like to end with asking, you already told us what you're reading now, but tell us what's next on your writing list, your list of books to read.
Well, it is actually the Throne of Glass. I think I'm on book 4 now. And I read the Akatar books or listened to them. I read a few and then I listened to them a lot because I have more time to listen, whether it's in the car or working out or whatever.
Yes.
So I'll finish that series. And I'm always reading, lots of like business and personal development kind of books at the
What's
same
your
time.
what's your number one business book to go to that you go to or you
Oh man, let's see. I've got a few back here. I'm a big Tim Ferriss
yes.
fanboy, so all things Tim Ferriss. I mean, way back it was the 4 Hour Work
I
Week
was
that
gonna
was kind
say
of
the 4 hour work
big,
week.
but like Tools of Titans, the 4 Hour Chef, like all of his books have been very, very instrumental in just my growth and development. So
See, people, you
listen to
write
the
your book,
podcast,
you're
subscribe,
changing lives. Love
Tim.
it. So Tim Ferriss, we will definitely check that out. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, and thank you everybody for tuning in and coming along. Please don't forget to like and follow my page, Soul Script Coaching. And if you are a writer, come join my Facebook group, Soul Script Writing Circle. If you want to talk to TJ, TJMurphy.me, right?
Murphy.me. Yep.
jmurphy.me. And yeah, and if you're looking for a book coach for some help getting that book written, starting to build your author brand, schedule a free book chat with me and let's just see where you are if I can help. Otherwise, I wish you all a fantabulous week. I'll see you next Friday. In the meantime, keep reading, keep writing, and keep making this world a better place. And thank you again, TJ, so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Jamie. As you said, it was a privilege and an honor to come on the show. Thank you again.
Thank you.